Scott again with the Film Crusader, and I'm back here with my buddy Robert, and we are going to talk about the movie Unforgiven. This is the part two of a two-part series about Unforgiven. So, Robert,
hmm
what do you what do you want to talk about next? What would be a
We kind
scene?
of left off when they were in the jail, and that was my favorite scene, the jail scene.
Hmm.
But then, I mean, you got to talk about when English Bob leaves town
Oh yeah, yeah,
because when Little Bill hands him that gun,
yeah,
and that gun is important to English Bob.
yeah.
I
Because
mean, that's a special gun.
yeah, because when Bill took it away from him earlier on, and he tells that kid, "Hey, be careful with that gun."
Yeah, it's a special gun.
Right. Well, when little Bill hands him back this gun, the barrel is bent
Man,
over,
I mean,
so crooked that he'll
I
never,
never expected that.
you
I
know,
mean, it's a great scene
yeah.
there.
Because he said, "Here's your guns, Bob," and they're
Yeah.
all bent and crooked and beat and
And he
stuff.
said, if I see you again, I'm just going to start shooting and
Yeah.
claim self-defense.
Yeah, if I see you again, Bob, I'm just going to start
So
shooting and figure it's self-defense.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and then when he tells him, he said, "I didn't steal your biographer.
Yeah.
He's staying on his own accord." And
Yeah.
then English Bob's, he's like, "Well, he can bloody go stuff himself, then, can he?" He starts cussing him out and
And
stuff.
just leaving, yelling at the horse.
Yeah,
No more.
no
No
more.
more.
Yeah,
You're all savages. You
you're bloody
savages.
savages. He said,
It's
"No
great.
wonder you migrated to America because they wouldn't have you in England. You're a bunch of bloody savages.
No,
The curse is on all of you."
that was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really good.
Richard Harris was a great actor
I mean, how could you have English Bob without him?
without him,
It
yeah.
it would not have the impact
And
that it
actually, Richard Harris was Irish. He was from
hmm
Ireland, like Peter
Boy,
O'Toole,
you wouldn't have known it in that
Yeah, you
movie.
wouldn't have known it. But
No.
I saw an interview with Richard Harris, and he said he knew this type of character, this aristocrat, kind of snobbish
hmm
type of character. He had ran into people like that all of his life,
Yeah.
because Ireland's part of the British,
Mhm.
Isles
Well,
and stuff.
he did a fantastic
Yeah,
job.
and he said there was a great story on YouTube. Clint Eastwood talks about when he was casting for English Bob. He
Yeah, that's a good one.
he, he calls up Richard Harris, and he was living in Bahamas, and the housekeeper answered, and he said, Clint Eastwood's calling for, want to talk to Richard Harris. And she said, "Who is this?" And he said, "Clint Eastwood, calling for
She
Richard Harris."
probably didn't believe it.
Yeah, and so Richard Harris came to front. He said, "Who is this? Is this Bob Joe? Who is this?" And he goes, "No, it's me, Clint Eastwood."
Mhm.
And the irony of the story, how it goes, is that Richard Harris had been in the basement of his house watching Clint Eastwood in High Plains Drifter when Clint calls to offer him the role of English Bob,
Well,
and he said he just couldn't believe
well,
it.
if that's not a sign to do a part, I don't know
Well,
what better sign do you want?
it's fate.
I mean, it
It-
truly is,
yeah,
and that solidifies this movie as just
yeah,
why everybody was in the right place
yeah. Right
at the
place,
right time.
the right time,
That's a
and
fantastic little
like
story.
Clint had owned the script to this movie. He owned it for like 10 to 15 years
And
before
before he decided to make
before
it.
they even decided to make it. So
So it's
it's
about
just
timing
it's
too.
timing, the right people at the
Mhm.
because if he would have made this like back in the 80s,
It wouldn't have been the same
it
cast.
wouldn't have been the same
No,
cast, and it wouldn't have been the same
and we
movie.
probably wouldn't be talking about
We wouldn't be talking about it. 'Cause
it.
it wouldn't have affected me when I got back
Yeah,
from Germany. I mean,
yeah,
it's so weird how these things happen. It's so
yeah.
funny when movies come out. At least for me, uh, I always know where I was when I first saw this movie,
Yeah, you always remember that.
but but that's just me,
Well, because that's your passion.
Yeah,
You're really passionate about it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So Richard Harris and uh, was just great, and one of my favorite actors too is Gene Hackman.
Well,
And
what can you say about Gene that's not been said?
right,
I mean, and everything about it is true. I mean,
yeah.
he's fantastic.
I mean, I grew up watching him. I remember. when he was in the when I saw the Poseidon Adventure, me and my friends over when I lived on 51st Terrace, we were playing I
Hmm.
was the preacher, of course. I was Gene, you know, playing
Right.
at the end of the movie, and I'm hanging on
Hmm.
it, doing the whole scenes and stuff, always. And then the French Connection, I'm acting out, I'm making my dad laugh because I'm doing the whole scene where
Yeah.
he comes into the bar and all that stuff. So Gene had been a big influence on me
Yeah.
too, and that's one of the reasons when I saw this movie, to have all these guys
Well, all of them
in it.
together,
Yeah.
and they're each in the right role for each one
Hmm.
of them. And Clint, as a director, he he kind of lets you just do your own thing.
Yeah.
He lets you take the part and absorb it, and then he lets you kind of go with it and use your talent.
Right.
Instead of telling you what he wants you to do, he kind of gives you a little freedom to make it your own. And that just shows how good that these guys really were, because
Hmm.
they read the script and knew what they needed to do. And
Right.
and Clint doesn't rule with an iron fist. He wants your talent to actually take over and let people see it.
Well, that's interesting you say that because the guy that plays Bosham,
Hmm.
you mentioned earlier how he kind of licks his lips
Yeah,
and stuff before he hands that gun to
that was ad lib
Well,
right there.
he went to Clint Eastwood. He said, "Hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking about." Well, no, it was not that scene, but the scene where he flips the coin to the barber.
Oh, okay.
He told
Hmm.
Clint, "This is what I'm going to do." And Clint says, "Why are you telling me this?"
Uh-huh.
And he said, "Well, I thought you would." And he goes,
Just.
he said, "Listen, I've hired you to do a job and to
Hmm.
be this character." He said,
Yeah.
"Whatever you bring to that character, you bring to it. If there's
Hmm.
something that I think's wrong or something, I'll talk to you about it." He said, "Other than that, I'm not playing your character. You're doing your job. I'm doing my job, and you just do what
And
you think's
when
best."
you cast the right people for the right role,
Right.
you can let them do that,
And
because that's what makes it great.
Clint always comes in on time. He always
Mhm.
he never goes over budget,
Yeah.
and they say he only does like one or two takes maybe
Hmm.
on on
Yeah.
scenes because he's very prepared,
Yeah.
and he's
Hmm.
used the same crew, the same
Hmm.
cinematographer for years.
Wow.
They've been with Clint Eastwood for years. It's
Hmm.
almost like the old John Ford
Hmm.
stock company where he had used the same people over and
Yeah.
over in
So
those
they
John
were
Wayne
all
movies.
proficient and knew what their job
Well,
is, and
well, they're
yeah,
like a family.
yeah,
They
sure,
all are very
yeah,
much together.
yeah.
And they know how each other thinks.
Well, that would help make a movie better.
Yeah, to be like me and you going out making a movie or something, and
Hmm.
we know how each other thinks. We're not going to,
Yeah.
So I mean, Clint Eastwood, that's what he does.
Uh-huh.
And he never says Clint Eastwood never says action in
Oh,
his
really?
no. And the reason why he doesn't, and I'll tell this story real quick, but when he was making Rawhide,
Hmm.
they were on horses, and Tom Hanks tells this story, but I'm going to retell it.
Oh, okay.
But he says that Clint Eastwood treats his actors like horses, and they would, "What do you mean he treats them like horses?"
Hmm.
Well, you know, the buildup to action is, sound, roll, blah blah blah, and action. They're screaming action, and it used to make the horses jump when they were
Okay.
about to do it, and they get all disarrayed and stuff.
Hmm.
So Clint would go up to the director and say, "Can you not scream that because you're making the horses jump?" And so
Hmm.
when he made his movies, he'll say something like, "Okay, when you're ready,"
Hmm.
or "Action Oni," or just something
Uh-huh.
real, "Okay, whenever you feel like going, go ahead." And
Hmm.
it's
Huh.
very and all
Very
I've
calm.
never heard any actor in Hollywood that's made
Hmm.
a movie with Clint Eastwood say they hated working with Clint Eastwood
Hmm.
just because of the way he treats his
Yeah.
actors and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
just a
that's.
little side story. But yeah, back to the film though. The scenes in this, I mean, they're just so very well done. You
Yeah.
know, uh,
I really like when um the guys, Clint is sick. They're coming out of the rain and Clint's
right?
sick,
He got sick.
and little Bill beat him up.
Hmm.
And they go out to that old barn, and they're out there waiting outside of town.
Right.
And Morgan Freeman sews up Clint's cuts on his eye, and Clint's in bad shape. And
Mm-hmm.
the kid asks Ned, said, "Is Will gonna
Is
die?"
he dying? Yeah.
And he said, "Well, maybe."
Right.
And then Ned and the boy go out to scout to find those two cowboys, and Clint's there, and Delilah comes up there to bring some medicine and to watch over him. And
Mm.
he wakes up and he said,
The next day,
"Yeah."
yeah, yeah.
He wakes up and says, "Wow, I thought I saw an angel."
Mm-hmm.
And that rapport between Clint and Delilah, it's really something special. And
Mm-hmm.
it shows the sweet spirit of Delilah,
Right.
you know. And when Clint said about the scars, that I didn't mean that you're ugly like me. It's just that we both have scars.
Right.
And she really felt had a heartfelt feeling for Clint
Right.
there.
Well,
And
and she tells him that Ned and the kid had been taking free ones,
yeah.
and she asked him,
Oh, that's right.
Would you like a
Yeah.
free one?"
Hmm.
And he said, "No, I don't think I would." And she said, "Oh, I didn't mean with me." And he said, "Well," he said, "I'm not saying that because you're cut up or
Right.
anything."
I
He
mean,
said, "It's just," he just said, "It's because of my wife."
yeah.
Even though his wife is dead, he still
Hmm.
has this feeling
Sure.
for his wife. And he
She
said,
had a huge influence on
right,
him changing.
right,
Yeah.
changing. And
Hmm.
he said, but if he was to take a free one, he would much rather have it with her than those
The
others.
other ones.
And it
Yeah.
kind of made her feel good,
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
there was this side to
Yeah.
William Money
And
that
she
that
had
was
respect for him saying that to
big,
honor his wife,
to honor his wife.
because she says, "Well, I've known a lot of men that wouldn't say that,
Right, right.
because of her business,
And it's a
obviously."
very tender moment
It is.
between because
It's.
Clinton thought he was going to die,
Hmm.
and he said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I thought I was a goner." He said, "I thought I was gone for
It's
sure."
it's a real touching moment
Right.
on the film that I I really liked it.
Yeah. Well,
It really
even
added to it and showed who Delilah truly was.
well, and then the scene before that, or the night before, when he is real sick, and him and
Hmm.
Ned are talking.
Yeah. Hmm.
He's kind of out of his head and saying that
Yeah.
he saw, Claudia with the worms coming out of her head and
Yeah.
stuff. And
Hmm.
remember that scene when he looks at Ned and Clint? He does such a great job of acting in this. He says, "Oh, Ned," he says, "I'm scared of
Scared of
dying. I'm
dying.
scared of dying."
Hmm.
He's so vulnerable and weak. Here
Well,
this killer is,
and he
you know,
said, "Don't ever tell my kids
don't,
what I've done."
yeah, don't tell my kids what I've
So
done.
he truly believed he was dying.
Right.
I
He thought
I believe that.
he
Yeah.
thought he was going to be
And
gone.
he was worried his kids would find out what a bad man that he was in the
Right.
past.
Right.
And that was
And
real
and
touching.
actually, Ned, if you remember what when Clint Ned didn't leave Clint's side till his fever broke,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
that's what Delia tells him. When they
Yeah.
saw your fever broke, they went out
They
and
left then.
then
Otherwise, they stayed
right
because
Ned.
they were worried.
Well, especially Ned, because
Yeah, Ned.
him and Ned were very very close. I
Hmm.
mean, like
Yeah.
brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Almost like they had a from when they were younger very strong bond. So
Yeah.
that I always found that scene to be very touching
Yeah, sure.
with Clint.
I did too.
I think it's one of
It
his.
really added to the movie
Oh
a
yeah,
lot.
absolutely. Well, and you never seen Clint
Hmm.
Eastwood vulnerable like that.
Right. I mean,
You know,
you don't think of him that way. It's always
yeah,
the rough persona
yeah,
that he has,
yeah. The tough guy.
but that really brought it a different part of
Yeah.
him,
Oh yeah.
the
Absolutely.
emotional part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
You
yeah.
know, and the kid was just full of shit through the whole movie. I mean, he was just
Yeah.
he was just this punk kid that was trying to. It's almost like he was trying to act grown up through the whole movie. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He was like a child almost trying to act tough. You
Yeah.
know, when
Hmm.
he wasn't tough at
No,
all.
he wasn't tough
No,
at
he
all.
was just talking.
And Ned and Clint knew that.
Right. Yeah.
They weren't falling for that
Right.
gig at all.
Yeah. Not at all. They
No.
could see right through him.
Yeah.
You know. So it was such a uh, it was kind of a cool
Mhm.
dynamic between those three, you
Mhm.
know.
I think that Clint was really annoyed by the kid.
Oh yeah,
Clint didn't like him. He's just there for the money,
right.
and the kid annoyed him because when Clint said, "Okay, we're going to ride in and kill Big Mike when he goes to the outhouse."
Hmm.
And the kid says, "Well, let me shoot him. Let me shoot him." He's all right. You can shoot him.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah, I
got
just
annoyed at
just
him.
shut up, kid.
Yeah, shut
Here,
up
I'll
and
give
just,
you a piece of
yeah.
candy so you just shut up, you know.
He was really
Yeah.
annoyed by that kid.
And then, well, we have the talk when they first go out after Clint's better, and they go out to kill Davy Boy,
Hmm. Yeah,
the first cowboy,
yeah,
and Clint ends up he shoots
yeah.
the horse out from under him. I think, and the horse falls, breaks Davy Boy's leg.
Mhm.
And remember that that actor? I always look. Jesus, fellas, you know. I mean, the way the way
My legs
my
broke.
my legs broke, boys.
Yeah,
You know, and
and
and uh, he's crawling away. He's trying to crawl away. Remember, Clint?
mhm.
He looks over at Morgan Freeman. He says, "Ned, you got to
You
finish
got to
him.
you got to take the
He get
shot before he gets
he
behind
gets
that rock.
behind those rocks.
Yeah,
He's gonna
we're not going to
we're
get
gonna
him.
miss this opportunity."
Yeah,
And remember, Morgan Freeman's he's
he's
trying to, and he looks over at what, and he can't do it.
he can't. He just
He
can't kill him.
just can't kill him. He
No.
can't do. And he looks over and he says, "Will," and he's just shaking. So Clint takes the sharp
Yeah.
rifle away from him, and he ends up shooting Davy Boy, kind of putting him out of his misery.
Yeah.
He shoots him,
Gut shot.
and remember that actor again. He goes, "I'm dying, boys," and he said,
He's
"Slim,
thirsty.
Slim, give me a drink of water."
Water.
And then this is the one thing that made me laugh at the
Oh.
moment. Clint says, "Give him a drink of water." God damn it, and I and I
So irritated.
and I, he's
Oh.
just so pissed about the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's just had it,
Yeah. He
He's
has.
had it.
Yeah.
He
He says,
you know,
"I'm not gonna shoot."
he says,
Uh,
"Well, you hurry up and give him a drink." And and
yeah.
he's just annoyed. Ned couldn't shoot. The
Yeah.
kids can't see, and
Mm,
he's in his ear, and he's like, "Did you get
mhm.
him? Did you get him?" And
Yeah.
he goes, "Yeah,
But
we got him."
but you could really tell that Ned was changed.
Ned was changed. Yeah,
Ned wasn't a killer. He's a farmer.
yeah. He had there
He
had
had
been,
changed.
like when he said
Mhm.
earlier, he said, "Well, we were young and full of beans
Right.
when we did stuff like
Yeah.
this." Well, now all these years later,
Yeah. And
Ned
Ned's not like that.
Ned's not like that anymore. Now, William Money
Yeah.
still had it in him
Will
to shoot.
still had a he was a killer.
He was still able to
Yeah.
shoot that kid
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
kind of put him out of his
Yeah.
misery. But Ned,
Yeah.
he just
Because
couldn't.
even for the money, Ned couldn't do it. He couldn't do
Ned
it.
couldn't do it. It just was
Yeah.
not part of him
Yeah.
anymore.
No. No.
Even though they had
Mhm.
been out this way and that's what they came there
Mhm.
to do, he could not
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so then they leave, and Ned decides, "Hey, I don't want no part of
I'm
this.
done.
I'm
I'm going
done."
home.
I'm going
I'm
home.
leaving.
He,
Yeah.
and
I don't
remember,
want the money. I don't
yeah,
want. I
remember,
just want to go home.
the kid says, "You're going to lose your share,"
Yeah.
and Clint looks at him and says, "Shut up," you know.
He'll get your
He says,
share.
"Shut up."
I'll make sure you get your
He
share,
said,
Ned.
"Kid's full of shit."
Yeah.
Remember, he says, "The kid's full of shit." He's had it with this kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
and so then him and the kid go out to kill Big Mike.
Yeah.
Out at the bar
Hmm.
T. You know, and that was oh, and so Ned's gone. They go out to the bar T, and well, before that, let's see, Ned leaves, and then he ends up getting caught.
Yeah.
He gets caught by the
Hmm.
cowboys and stuff,
Yep.
and he brings him back to
Brings him back to town.
Big Whiskey, and Gene's there waiting
Hmm.
on him, and then one of the next things you see Gene in there whipping Ned. He's got him up against the
Yeah.
bar, and
It's
he's
a very powerful
fearful.
scene. Yeah. Very powerful
Yeah, you
scene
think
there.
he beat
Hmm.
English Bob? He's whipping Ned with
Yeah.
his bull whip,
And Ned's not telling.
and Ned's not
You
telling,
know.
and he's just wailing on him. And he said, "Now, what are these boys' names?" And it's like Hendershot or something like that. And WW's down
He's
there, and
going,
he's like
"No,
shaking his head.
that's
And,
not right.
then little Bill's like, "No, that's not what you said." And he goes, "The hell it isn't,"
No, it ain't.
you
Hell, it
know.
ain't." Yeah.
And then remember, he tells his deputy, "Go get those girls that have been fucking this these boys at the night
Hmm.
of the and won't find out."
Silky and Strawberry
So,
House.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Go get them.
and this is the scene
Yeah.
that is just unbelievable.
It's haunting.
It's a
It's a
haunting
haunting
scene.
scene. It truly
It
is.
shows Ned
Hmm.
holding on to the jail door where
Hmm.
he's tied up, and little Bill's been whipping him, and Gene Hackman comes up over his shoulder and puts his face on his shoulder,
Hmm.
and he says, "Now, Ned, you know, when your lies doesn't match up with these women's lies,
Hmm.
well, I'm not going to hurt no woman, but I'm going to hurt you, and not gentle like before, but bad." The way he said, "but bad,"
Yeah. It's.
and
I mean, you
it's
could hear a pin drop.
yeah. I mean, the hairs on the back of
Hmm.
your neck stand up, and Morgan Freeman even
Hmm.
talks about that scene. He said
Hmm.
when Gene Hackman came over and he said those
Hmm.
lines to him, he said he believed it.
He literally was
He
scared and believed
literally
it.
was
Yeah.
scared. He said he was so
Yeah.
convincing by
Oh
saying
yeah.
those lines. He said he believed every word that
Yeah.
Gene Hackman was
It
saying.
was very powerful.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was. I just was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Very, very
You know,
powerful.
it was a crazy scene.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
uh, and let's see. Yeah, and then they go out to kill. It shows William Money and the kid go out to get Big Mike,
Yeah.
and the kid ends up killing him in the shitter,
Hmm.
and and riding out, and then see this is the thing. Then remember the whore comes out to give him their money
Yeah. To pay him.
to pay him,
Yep.
and Will starts counting the money. He's like, we're going to
Hmm.
divide. We'll give Ned share. She says, Ned share.
Hmm.
Ned's dead, and he said, nobody killed. What do you mean Ned's
He went
dead?
south.
He left. He didn't kill anybody. He left
Hmm.
South yesterday.
Hmm.
Who killed him?
Hmm.
And then she explains that
Yeah.
little Bill had beat Ned so bad that
Hmm.
Ned told who he was, and he said William Money out of Missouri, a killer of women and children.
Hmm.
And she said somewhere as little Bill had been beaten and Ned just died.
Died. Well, you had a good take on that that I never really
Yeah,
thought too much about,
right.
but I think it's a pretty good take on
Yeah,
it.
and I always thought this. I was thinking about this the other day that I don't believe Ned died from little Bill beating him,
Hmm.
even though he does die, from the beating of the little
Hmm.
Bill. But I don't think Ned died until he ends up telling little Bill who William Money actually is. And
Hmm.
I think he died because he betrayed his friend.
Yeah. He
He
held
actually
out as long as he
he held
could,
up, but he was in
but
such pain he
pain,
couldn't
he
take it
just couldn't
anymore.
take it. Yeah.
And once he ended up telling who William Money really was,
Hmm.
he couldn't take that
That
betrayal,
that guilt,
that
maybe.
guilt, that
Sure.
guilt that
Yeah, it was too much.
he betrayed his friend and he
Hmm.
died.
Yeah.
His spirit
Hmm.
was done.
Yeah.
He had betrayed the only friend he's
Yeah.
got in the world,
Yeah.
someone that he was
I
very
think
close to.
it really affected him.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah. I
why.
think that's a pretty good take
Yeah,
on
even though Gene had beat him
that.
so bad,
Yeah.
I think that was the tipping
That was
point
what actually he
because
died after that.
yeah,
Yeah.
his spirit had been killed
Yeah.
by that point
Yeah.
because he betrayed his friend,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
and he couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah. That's a good take.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought about that. I thought, yeah, he
Hmm.
was beat, but it was
Hmm.
that betrayal
Yeah.
that actually killed
But
Ned.
we got to talk about when Clint goes in to the bar, when Ned's out front dead, and they're
Oh, then
holding him up there,
yeah.
and
Well,
basically, uh, he's on display.
well, what precedes that though is when for me when the movie changes,
Hmm.
when the movie actually changes into what
Hmm.
it becomes,
Hmm.
is when that Forrest telling him that Ned was killed. and you see
He takes a
he
drink.
takes a drink of
Yeah.
whiskey, which he
Mhm.
wouldn't do through the whole movie because
Right.
he'd been reformed.
Mhm.
Once he starts drinking that whiskey,
Yeah. The old Will
you're like
is there.
oh shit.
Yeah.
'Cause
That's
be-
when you know you're going to
because
get what you came for.
right, because all through the movie
Yeah.
he said when he
Mhm.
used to be that bad mean
Yeah.
son of a bitch, he used to
Mhm.
drink a lot.
Right. He
And
said, I don't really remember
but
those
Claudia
things.
had cured him of that.
Yeah.
Remember
Well, she didn't cure
when
him
he
of it.
starts drinking that when he hears Ned's dead,
Yeah.
and then you see the scene where it's raining, and
Well,
as his horse is walking through, and you see the street, all of a sudden you see this empty whiskey bottle go
yeah.
into the
I
middle of the
mean,
street.
what a great scene. I mean,
Yeah,
it you just know what's coming.
yeah.
I mean, it's you know it's
When
coming.
you see that empty whiskey
Oh
bottle
man,
go in the middle, and it's
it,
lightning out,
yeah,
and you see it
it's
drop in the street,
what a great
you're
scene
like, oh
to
shit.
preface what's coming.
Yeah, and then then he
Mhm.
rides by Ned, and they
Yeah,
got him displayed out on the
yeah,
street. This is what happens to the
assassins.
assassins around
Right.
here. They just got in front of that Greeley's
Hmm.
saloon,
Yeah,
and you're just like, oh man,
yeah. They're talking
yeah,
and hollering. Oh,
yeah.
we're gonna get free beers
Gene's
and
kind of bragging.
free
He's
drinks
like,
and this stuff.
now that's two. After
Yeah,
that, Skinny, you
yeah.
charge them. They pay,
Yeah, we're going down to all the way to
yeah.
Texas to get these
And
guys.
then you see Bo Sham look up, and
And he sees him.
his eyes get big,
Yeah.
and he kind of stands up, and then Gene's talking, and all of a sudden you hear it kind of like a creak,
Yep.
and they all kind of turn around,
And when you see Clint's face,
plus he's standing over that shotgun
yeah, it's the Will money that was there 30 years
that
ago.
was 30 years ago.
Right.
This is
He's back.
this is not the Clint we've
He's
been.
not reformed.
This is not the Clint we've been
Right.
watching through the whole film. This is a different guy.
Yeah. And that look on his face,
Yeah,
no one else could have looked that way.
yeah.
It's a Clint Eastwood moment.
His whole persona,
It's just totally
almost
different.
like Gene when
Yeah.
Gene would go
In a
psychotic.
trance.
His
Yeah.
whole persona and
Yeah.
demeanor is changed.
Yeah.
The way he even looks
Yeah.
changed.
His eyes are
His
just
eyes,
unmistakable.
yeah. And he says, who's the owner of this shithole?
Right.
You know.
Mm.
And then he tells,
And I mean, it is just dead quiet.
I
No one wants to speak up.
everybody
Everyone
in
is
the
just
theater. You could have heard a
yeah,
drop in the theater
yeah. It's
when that shows. Everybody was just like
oh,
almost taking a gasp
yeah,
when they see him at
yeah,
that
because
door.
it's powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
His look is just it would scare to death
yeah,
anybody.
you just know
Yeah,
what's going to come.
yeah, yeah.
Something's up.
This is what you came to see.
Yeah,
Really,
this is
it.
what people actually
It
were
took the whole
wanting.
movie,
Yeah,
but we finally got there.
yeah. This is like a
And
Clint Eastwood old or
yeah,
something.
oh man,
But a little bit different. I mean,
it's different.
it was
Yeah,
a mean son of a bitch had just
yeah.
walked through that somebody that you shouldn't have jacked with.
I mean, it's just so many things tied together,
Yeah,
and it's just a wonderful movie.
yeah. Remember,
I mean,
and he says, "Who's the owner of this shithole?"
yeah.
And Skinny says, "I am."
Finally speaks up.
He says, "No, are you?" First, he says, "You fat man,
Yeah, speak up.
speak up." And then Skinny says,
He's not speaking up.
I own it." And you remember Gene's like, "Now wait a minute, wait a minute,"
Yeah.
and he just shoots
Bam.
Skinny. Boom. He goes, "Well, sir, you're a cowardly son of a bitch."
Yeah. You just
You
shot
shot an
an
unarmed
man.
man. And he said, "Well," and I love this. He said, "Well, he should have armed himself if he's going to decorate his saloon with my
Yeah.
friend."
And that tells you why.
Yeah. And then Gene,
What's
like,
coming.
"You're William Money." Killed,
Out of Missouri.
So that's right. I've killed women and children, killed everything that walks or crawls at
Yeah.
one time, and I'm here to kill
Kill
you,
you, little Bill.
little Bill, for what you did to Ned. And you're just like,
Oh
holy
boy.
shit.
Here we go.
And then you go back, you don't go back, but everything that little Bill had talked about earlier in the house scenes
Mhm.
about misfiring, how people will
Yeah.
shoot,
People are rattled and they're
rattling
just shooting all over
instead
and
of
they're not calm.
being calm and stuff.
Yeah.
Everything that he described ends up happening at
In
the
that
end,
one
end
scene.
of the movie.
In the
That
one scene. It all happens all
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
You know,
Truly does.
and
Yeah.
because Clint goes to shoot
Yeah.
little Bill and the shot
Misfire.
and he goes, misfire, shoot the son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And he little Bill pulls his gun to
Yeah.
shoot, but he misses and
Yeah.
Clint shoots him.
Yeah.
And then all the deputies start firing all crazy, and Clint's just cool and calm.
That fat deputy's just
Yeah, he's just
shooting
shooting.
all over the
Yeah,
floor.
bullets are going everywhere. And Clint's just
Oh,
calm.
that just made me laugh.
Clint's just calm, and he's just shooting,
Yeah.
just
Yep.
shooting one by one.
Yep.
And when I first saw that the end of that scene when the writer gets up and he's like, "Oh, I'm shot," and he goes, "No, you're not shot."
I'm not sure.
You know, I thought, "Oh shit, this writer's going to come back and he's going to kill Clint because
Mm,
you're not expecting it." I thought, "Oh
yeah,
shit, he's
yeah.
going to kill Clint
When
at
when
the
he
end."
told him to pick that rifle
Yeah,
up,
and I thought,
that
"Oh
was a weird moment.
yeah." And
You
then
know.
Clint's over there loading that, and then
Mhm.
he's drinking. He's still drinking at the
Yeah.
bar, and this is what Clint does too. When he takes, if you look at this, he takes a sip of that whiskey, and his eyes blink like
Mhm.
Gene's did.
Wow. I
Like
never noticed that.
he'll take a sip. He takes a sip of that, and his
Mhm.
eyes go. They
Mhm.
blink like he's in
Mhm.
that
Well,
psychotic
you
mode.
have to be to kill all those
Yeah,
people. I
yeah,
mean, you kind of have to be.
yeah. I mean, these are
Mhm.
they're crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a psychotic part
Mhm.
of a human being
Yeah.
just going absolutely bonkers.
Man.
With revenge
Sure.
to what has
Mhm.
happened. This is it's revenge, and it's almost like a justification.
Mhm.
You're not going to do this. You killed Ned because of what I did.
Right. Yeah,
Uh-uh.
I'm not gonna live with that. You're gonna
Yeah,
pay for that.
yeah.
Well, and then when Little Bill's shot and he's dying, and we talked about this in the first part,
Mm-hmm.
where really Little Bill's dream is to sit on the porch, smoke his pipe, drink his coffee, and watch the sunset.
Right. That's it. That was his dream.
And after Clint shoots him and he's laying there dying,
Mm-hmm.
what's he say? He said, "I didn't deserve
There's a, I
this.
was building
I
a
was
house.
building a house."
Right.
And the last thing he thinks of before he dies is his little dream that he had.
Right.
And he knows he's not going
He's
to
not
get
going
it.
to get it.
No.
And what's Clint
Eh,
say to him?
Yeah.
Deserve has
You have
nothing to
nothing to
do
do
with
with it.
this. And
Yeah.
that's when he says, "I'll see you in
Yeah.
hell,
Oh,
William
well,
Money."
yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah." And because when he was drinking at the bar and he was his eyes kind of blink like that, you see little Bill start to pull his gun and
Yeah.
Clint hears it because I thought, oh fuck,
Here we
he's
go.
going to kill Clint.
Hmm.
I thought Clint was going to get killed at the end.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to kill him.
Yeah.
I really did. you know. And then he ends up shooting Gene, and
Hmm.
I thought this son of a bitch is going to get away now.
Yeah.
Remember he goes to that
But
door.
he was so mean that no
No
one
one dared.
dared to confront him.
Yeah,
Nobody. Even the sheriff, none of them.
yeah.
No,
Not
no,
remember
no. The
when
deputies.
when he goes to the door, he
Hmm.
yells, "All right,
Hmm.
I'm coming out." And he some
Yeah.
bitch takes a shot at me. I'm going
Yeah.
to kill him, his wife,
Wife.
and burn his damn
Damn house
house
down.
down. He said, "You better not shoot."
And they believed him.
Yeah. Yeah, remember
Yeah.
he gets on that horse, and this was the
Mm.
scene also that kills me. And he goes, "You better bury Ned
Ned
right."
Wright.
And then the camera pans up to him as he turns around that horse, and he goes,
Yeah.
"Or I'm gonna come back and kill all you sons of bitches."
And I mean,
Just,
that's
just
powerful.
such a Clint Eastwood,
Yeah.
just a mean
But that's that booze coming
that
out of him.
booze.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He couldn't be that way without it.
no, no.
It took that to do it, but he was a killer.
But yeah, well,
I mean, he
that
was a killer.
that booze brought
Yeah.
that killing
Mhm.
side out of him.
Claudia didn't change him.
Not really.
No, he
No,
was
it's
never changed.
just it buried
It
it down.
suppressed it.
Right.
Right.
Now Ned,
Yeah. Ned
Ned was
changed.
changed.
Ned was
Ned was
changed.
changed.
Yeah.
He was a
Mhm.
farmer, and
Yeah.
Sally, his
Two
wife,
trees
Two
or
Trees,
yeah.
Sally Two Trees.
Hmm.
She had changed him.
She changed
They
him.
were farmers stuff.
Yeah.
But Will, you know, and Ned really went
Yeah.
with Will. It was like a
Yeah.
final adventure.
Like Will was the leader, and
Yeah.
Ned's just coming along for the fun of it.
Yeah, Ned
Just show,
hasn't
hey, I need to get out of this
Ned
farm. I'm
hadn't done
tired of being
anything.
here.
Yeah, he hadn't done
Yeah.
anything in 10, 15 years, and
No.
he was wanting to go on
Yeah. He just
something.
wanted to go on a road trip.
Well, it was a road trip.
Road
It
trip.
was back to his youth.
Yeah.
It was
He
kind of a
wanted to relive a little bit of that.
relive a little bit
Yeah.
of
He
his
didn't
youth.
go really to kill those guys.
No, and he
Never on
really
his
didn't
mind.
care about the money. I
No,
mean,
he didn't care.
that now Clint, it was
Yeah.
all about the
Clint
money
Clint wanted the money.
and the kid.
Yeah.
You know,
For his kids.
right,
He
right.
did.
That's why he
Hmm.
was doing it. But
Yeah.
Ned, this was more of an opportunity for him to go.
Go with Will and for them to be together
Yeah,
again.
and
For
it ended up
kind
costing
of
him his life.
cost him his
You
life.
know,
Yeah.
you know,
And Sally knew that when they left.
right.
Because when she looked at Ned and Ned looked at her, she knew he wasn't coming home.
Right.
She knew it. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, Robert. We talked about this just a little bit ago. What do you think the meaning of this movie, Unforgiven, is about? What is the
This
trick? Because I've watched things and they say it's actually about anti-violence. maybe a little bit about women's rights, a little bit. I think that's a little Hollywoodish, you
Yeah,
know. I've never seen the women's rights. I could see it being an anti-violent message,
hmm
but you had a good take on it. Explain
well,
what you think.
I mean, the name of this movie is the essence of the movie to me. It's Unforgiven,
Right.
which it's all about the unforgiveness spirit that people have. That when you don't forgive someone who asks for forgiveness, this is what breeds out of that. All all this death and destruction and all was only there because Strawberry Alice kept it going.
But who was asking for unforgiveness
Well,
or for
the
forgiveness?
the Cowboys. I mean,
Well, not Big Mike.
well, maybe not Big Mike,
And I don't think really Davy was
but
asking for
I think
forgiveness.
he was because that's why he brought her a special pony.
He
And
was
that
wanting her to forgive him.
what other way could he express that?
Right, right,
So Davy Boy absolutely was sorry.
right,
Now Big Mike, I didn't really get that from him,
right,
but if you think about it, if Strawberry Alice would have dropped this, there'd be no movie. The movie would be over.
right,
Nobody would have died. Ned would be alive. Will Money'd be a pig farmer. All the guys would still be living. Little Bill would be retired on his house. But because of her unforgiving spirit, all that happened
mm.
because she kept it going.
Because she
And
couldn't, and it didn't even happen to her.
and she wasn't even the victim. That's
Right,
the worst part about it. The
right,
victim, Delilah, forgave those guys. She
right,
found it in her heart to forgive them. And
right,
she was the victim. She wakes up every day and sees those scars on her face, but she let it go. She
right,
forgave those guys. Why? Because it's better for you to do that.
right.
But Strawberry Alice would have none of that. It's a bitterness and a hatred that somehow was inside of her.
Mm.
That to me, it's a societal problem.
That they
When
could,
you don't forgive somebody, it causes more and more death
right,
and destruction.
right,
And it's a lesson for all of us to learn. Every
right,
one of us, me, you, everybody in humanity, to learn that there's a time that we all make mistakes, and there's a time that we have to find some forgiveness in our heart.
right,
Otherwise, society crumbles.
right. And that's what ended up really happening to all those.
That's
Everything crumbled.
to me, that's the essence of this movie.
Right.
But when you go through the extra scene DVD
Mhm.
and Clint and Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman,
The
the
writer.
author, none of that was ever mentioned. None of it. And
Right,
and I don't know how they could talk about this movie afterwards and not bring that up. I
right,
was I was floored by that not being brought up because to me that's the most powerful thing about this movie is that you have to have a forgiving spirit in your life. There's
right,
going to come a time when you're going to need to forgive people and you're going to need forgiveness from others because you're going to make a mistake.
right.
And as a society, if we don't do that, society crumbles and it causes death and pain and suffering that is not necessary.
It's so weird that you say that because I had never, all the times I've watched this and stuff,
Mhm.
I had never had gotten that
Mhm.
before. I never even thought about that.
I
I,
got that the first time I watched it.
yeah, and that's such a
I've
unique,
got more of it as I've watched it,
right,
and maybe it's because I'm wanting to get it. I don't know, but I believe that it's there in the movie.
right.
But they don't talk about it. The
Hmm.
actors, the author, they don't talk about that.
I
And
don't think I've ever heard anybody give that analogy.
to me, that's
It's
so powerful. It's such a message for everybody to hear.
well, it's a very unique perspective of that movie. That
But it's the name of the movie,
right,
Unforgiven. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
how they can't talk about that afterwards. I don't get it.
right,
I don't get how they can make that movie, how the guy can write that movie and not see that in there.
right.
It's just it is it's mind boggling to me.
It'd be interesting to talk to somebody like Morgan Freeman or that
Yes,
writer
I would love to talk to him
and see
and say what
if they had that same type of
it's a
perspective or if they have ever thought about
it's
that
such a powerful message
or
and
Clint.
and it's such a perfect platform
Right.
and no one expands on it. No one used it for that. And to
Yeah.
me, that's a tragedy.
We'd go to Clint. He'd say,
You know,
"Get out of here." That's a
I mean, I just to me that's why it's my favorite movie
right.
because that is such a powerful message and it's one that we all need to hear
Right.
and we all need to do it.
Well,
There
it's
will be a time in your life you got to forgive somebody,
right.
and there's going to be a time in your life that you need forgiveness
Well,
from
and
others.
and what do they usually say
Mhm.
about excuse me about forgiveness?
Mhm.
And it kind of goes to that movie. When you don't,
Yeah,
it eats you up
yeah.
inside, and and
It's a bitterness that hardens your heart.
and that's kind of what happened to Strawberry
Yeah,
Alice, and I mean, it all just
yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
does
So
it and I would say it uh even ate at the soul of the town
sure it
itself.
did.
Big whiskey. It was
Absolutely
all
did.
it all
Mhm.
affected that town
Yeah.
so badly.
I mean, when people are murdered and killed, I mean, that's something that lasts for generations.
Right.
I mean, it changes everything because
Yeah.
his people are gone. And none of that would have happened had he run Strawberry Alice out of town, or
Right.
Strawberry Alice wouldn't have had that darkness and evilness
In her.
and hatred in her.
Hmm.
None of this would have happened.
Yeah, because all, like you said, all the other horses and stuff, they were kind of, they would have let it
They were
go.
on the fence about it.
Delilah was forgiving,
You know,
but
Delilah had a sweet spirit
the
about
key
her.
was Strawberry Alice.
Strawberry Alice was the instigator that kept all this going, and in my mind, she's responsible for all that
Right.
death.
Which was
Mhm.
the character was played by then Clint Eastwood's girlfriend,
And I find
Frances Fisher.
that is so
Yeah.
fitting that
Yeah.
he lets her be kind of the bitch in the
The bitch
deal.
in the movie,
I think
Yeah.
that's just a neat little
Yeah,
side part
she's
there.
a pretty good actress too. She's a
Yeah,
very good
yeah. Oh, she
actress.
did really
Yeah.
good at that. I'll tell
Yeah.
you that.
Yeah, that's
She did.
probably one of her best roles, I
Yeah.
would say,
Yeah.
But
So that's how the movie affected me, and that's why I think it's such a great movie because it really brought that forefront to me about forgiving people,
right.
and I wish that when people saw it they got that,
Right.
and I don't think the general public they went and saw the movie and they left, and I don't think they got that, but to
Right.
me it's such a platform to show what happens when you don't forgive.
Right.
And I wish that they would have made a big deal out of it because
Yeah.
it could change people's lives.
Well, whoever listens to this, if you
Mhm.
have a take
Yeah.
on what Robert's saying or about what unforgiven means to you, what the message is, leave a comment,
We
and
would really like
yeah, and
to hear your take on it.
we'll definitely
Yeah,
respond to
absolutely.
that because
Mhm.
I think it's a very unique. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about uh, unforgiving with that type of message
Yeah,
in this movie.
mhm,
I didn't see it.
right.
I know a couple of my friends they wouldn't have saw it. I've never heard them talk
Yeah.
about it that way.
Well, to me, I
Yeah.
don't know how
Yeah.
you don't see it.
Well, I
It's
know.
you know
I
we all see it different, but
that's the thing though. I
mhm,
mean, here is somebody that's not a movie guy and stuff, but you pick
yeah,
up on
yeah,
uh, a unique way of thinking about that
mhm,
maybe I hadn't seen or other people.
yeah.
It's that's the
That's why we do
yeah
this. That's why we're going to
that's
talk about
that's the
things.
power of movies. Power of
Yeah,
movies can affect people
different
in
ways.
different ways, and
Mhm,
it's really exciting when you at least for me is when I
mhm,
see somebody that has a unique point of view on something.
sure. Mhm,
Maybe I'm not saying I don't agree with you, but I'm
yeah.
gonna say maybe I won't agree, but it's just like wow, I never really
Mhm,
thought of it that way, and it gives you something to think about,
yeah.
especially a movie I have seen since
Mhm.
1992.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
not being a real movie guy or movie fan, this movie really that message is so strong for me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is the message of forgiveness because this world needs it.
Well, I've known you since kindergarten, and I've never seen you as
Mhm.
passionate about
Yeah,
something
it's
far as the movie goes.
yeah, yep.
I mean, when you were first talking about it, I'm
Mhm.
like, "Are you out of your mind?" I mean,
Mhm.
I didn't quite understand I
Mhm.
mean, you were really passionate about it.
Yeah,
That's why I wanted you to talk about it again.
yeah. Well, I
And
appreciate you letting me on
no, that's
and
good.
talking about it. I mean, it's really a honor to do it.
Oh no,
Yeah,
that's fine. It was a great podcast.
yeah.
I think this was a good take on the movie. And
Uh-huh.
if any one of you have not seen this, please go out
Yeah.
and watch Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood. It's
Yeah.
just it's a masterpiece.
It truly is.
And
Yeah.
if you have comments about it,
Yeah.
please
Let us
let us
know
know.
how you felt about it.
Yeah,
We would really like to know.
absolutely. Okay, I think that's going to wrap it up. This is Scott with the Film Crusader with my special guest star,
Robert.
and we're saying goodbye to you. Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
Bye.